Good afternoon. I am Rocío Álvarez Osorio, teacher of the Master of Entrepreneur and Innovation and the director of EAE Lab and the EAE Entrepreneur Ecosystem. Welcome to the EAE Entrepreneur Experience, a program that addresses all aspects of entrepreneurship. I take this opportunity to extend a cordial greeting to all those who are joining for the first time, and especially to those who are seeing this cycle from different parts of the world. As you know, the EAE Entrepreneur Experience is an initiative promoted by the Alumni Association, a project of the school that offers 5 large areas of services to students and alumni in training and knowledge, professional development, networking, benefit and discounts. In this session entitled "What does it mean to be an entrepreneur and are you ready to be one?", we will focus on the characteristics that identify a business talent and talk about the challenge involved in the process of creating your own company. To talk about this topic, we have the presence of Álvaro Cuesta.
Hi.
Welcome, Álvaro, co-founder of Sonar Ventures, the first producer of startups in Spain. It's a company that's dedicated to advise, accompany, and launch new ventures of proven success in the international area. Before giving the word to Álvaro, I invite you to participate in this session and ask your questions through Twitter using the hashtag EAE Conference. Again, and welcome, Álvaro. Please start when you want.
Thank you very much, Rocío, and thanks all of you for coming. Thanks whoever is behind the cameras now, watching us at this moment. Thank you so much. And I want to start by saying that it's a very complicated or interesting format for us, as I was telling you last time, because we're going to give a sort of like a masterclass on entrepreneurship and the topics that we will cover. So it should be interactive because there are people in the room, as for those of you that are seeing us, that are watching us. But at the same time, there are other people that could be interacting, and they're not here. So I really would like to encourage you to participate and to really be part of it, because otherwise it will not make such difference if you watch them now or later. So take advantage of the possibility of participating and making it more interactive, and I think we will get a benefit of it. So that's one thing. So the idea is that you could please interrupt me anytime. And it's not a possibility, it's a request. Otherwise, speaking for an hour and a half just by myself, even though I hope it's interesting, it could be more interesting if it's enriched with your insights, your questions, your experiences, your doubts, whatever it needs. So for that, we'll have both the participation and the hashtag that I think
EAE Conference,
your EAE Conference, and that's it. So, having said that, what are we going to talk about today? Today, despite the fact that the title of the conference is "What does it mean to be an entrepreneur? Am I ready to be one?", which of course we will cover that. But basically, I wish it could be everything you wanted to know about entrepreneurship and you'd never dare to ask. Okay? Basically, we will cover more aspects of the psychology of entrepreneurship rather than specific methodologies that we will cover on different sessions. Then we will get more specific in terms of customer discovery, customer development, lean startup, and other methodologies. But today we're going to talk about motivational aspects. It's not a motivational session, okay? I don't like, on a normal basis, this motivational speaking, motivational events or stuff like that, where you feel you're ready to be an entrepreneur and next day you just go back to whatever it was, right? This is not the purpose of this, but this is about the psychology of entrepreneurship, how motivation plays a big role and how other traits are important before we decide to become entrepreneurs. Even if we are, it's good to know whether we are potentially good entrepreneurs or not. So just to give an overview of the topics that we will cover, we will start from the external aspects of entrepreneurship, those that are not within our control, the environmental aspects, and those are aspects that we should take into account before considering becoming entrepreneurs or before even considering a specific idea. We will talk about the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And after that, we will cover the internal aspects of entrepreneurship, specifically the motivational ones, the different skill set that we need for that. And once we do that, we will focus on the common mistakes that we as entrepreneurs tend to make from a psychological point of view, and put in a specific emphasis. And I really hope I can avoid you becoming something that I have a crusade or I have a fight against it, which is I don't want you to become one-upreneurs, okay? To become a one-upreneur is one of the highest risks you have if you're watching this session. You probably are watching it because you're thinking about starting a business, becoming an entrepreneur, you're still not sure, you want to learn a bit more about it, you want to hear other people's experience, and so on. But we will see that it's great that you do that, but in my experience, it's very common that you remain in that area of, watching other people speaking about it, reading about it, sharing your idea with others, working on drafts, logos, ideas, but never actually making and taking the step to become entrepreneurs. So that's one, actually is my main objective. First, to realize if you really think that whether you are entrepreneurs or not, and if you really consider that you can become entrepreneurs, it's very important also to take into account the risks between the moment you want to be and the actual moment you become. Okay, so that's the whole overall of the session. Also, we can enrich it with whatever other topic you want to. So I read this quote. I think it was this weekend actually. I read this quote about expositions or classes or conferences that I think you can apply here. It said that if you don't know your audience before you give a conference, if you don't really ask their expectations or what they really want to, it's like writing a love letter, starting with "to whom it may concern." Okay, and I like that quote because I think it shows how important it is to adapt the speech to whatever you have to say. So if anyone here or through the social network wants to say anything, wants me to speak about anything in particular, it's a good moment now or any moment during the exposition. Okay. So who am I? Very difficult question. But it's very important that at least you have a glance of where I'm coming from and my experience, because things we value things and depending on who is telling us, right? So it's not the same that I come here because I tell you I've been a consultant on entrepreneurship for 20 years, but I've never actually being an entrepreneur. Well, you would say that it's interesting, but you would consider it as okay, it's a good theory, good experience. If I was like a guy that just sold his business for 200 million euros, well, then you would value my experience in that context. And so I think it's great that I tell you at least where I'm coming from. Basically, I'm 38 years old, and I've been an entrepreneur for actually 20 years. I started when I was 20. 20. Yeah, almost 20 years. Yeah, I was 19 when I started my first business, and it was an e-democracy company. Okay, we wanted to we wanted to empower people to be able to vote on different laws through electronic signature. As you can imagine, doing that in 1999 was suicidal, okay? Was stupid, was dumb, which as I introduce myself, I will give you some hints about entrepreneurship, not just to speak about myself in a self-centric manner, but at least to also to take into account my own mistakes through that experience. So one of the mistakes I made was to think of the idea, but not consider all the external aspects of that idea, and one of them is timing. And if you don't consider timing as part of your equation of your decision, and then you're naive, you're stupid, or you are over optimistic, right? And in my case, considering that it was only 1 million people in Spain that had internet access, not to mention the electronic signature, and that the law required 500,000 signatures to go and pass a law, that seemed quite stupid. But anyway, so lesson learned, and it's never good to start a business too early, neither too late. And too late means when there's a mature market, unless you really, really know you have a competitive advantage. Okay, sounds obvious, but really we normally don't take that into account. I heard Larry Page from Google saying that the right timing, if you want to create an innovative business, not just a franchise of hamburgers, if you want to create an innovative business, it's between 3 to 5 years ahead of time. I would say 3, better than 5, considering the evolution of our, the way society is changing now. 3 years, which that implies that for 3 years, you're going to have an incredible amount of uncertainty. Incredible amount of uncertainty. Incredible amount of suffering, because whatever you do, and despite the fact that you might apply other methodologies, you will not get the right signals, or at least you will not get the response you really want from the market at the beginning, and you will have low resources, and it will be difficult to get more resources since you cannot prove success. Mm-hmm. So to me is one of the most difficult times in a business, right? But if once again, you need to be there. I always had this image of being like a surfer that it's staying there waiting for the wave, the right wave, and it's cold and it's tired and it's suffering, and at the same time his head or her head is starting to play tricks, saying, oh, maybe you should go back, it's late, maybe tomorrow there will be another wave. And it's about persistence. But then when the wave comes, you need to be able to get on the table, on the on the board, and be able to actually ride the wave. So it takes first the timing to know when you want to go surfing, then perseverance to actually wait for the wave no matter what, and then actual skills to be able to, when the wave comes, be able to take it, and most importantly, to keep on it, which is what also most businesses don't take into account, okay? How to become competitive in the long term. So I started that, then I created a law firm when I was a law student. Actually, I was not even in second year of university, and I wanted to build a law firm based on technology and internet. It was an internet law firm. At that time, there were almost no lawyers. Actually, not even today. There are not many lawyers that actually know about technologies and internet. So I thought we had a competitive advantage on that, and it was that timing. And in that matter, I was right. So we created Ex Novo, that it was a startup law firm, and I just hired and I surrounded myself by 2 to 3 lawyers, that actually real lawyers, not law students. But since I was not a lawyer myself, I focused on what I knew how to do. I knew how to develop. How to become a developer, a software developer. So I designed a software on how to comply with internet law, like a self-assessment per se. Okay. And then that was the way to actually get clients and so on. So second message I want to give you through my own experience. Don't postpone it saying, oh no, I first want to get more experience on that field and then I will become an entrepreneur. That's a very common mistake I listen to, because it's what's behind normally it's fear. I understand it's prudency at the same time. But the difference between being prudent and being fearful, it's very slight. When it comes to entrepreneurship, I tend to think that it's more about fear. And so my point is, this famous approach of learn by doing. Even in the most extreme case, being a lawyer, where you should actually have even more knowledge and even need you need to be required to be a lawyer to actually offer legal services. That's why I surrounded myself with other lawyers at that time. But I didn't want to wait. I didn't want to wait to finish my studies and get experience and work to go into a law firm and learn from there. And then, 3 years later, when you're probably married or, with a serious relationship and your life, it's not that, you cannot assume that many risks as you may be able to assume now, then maybe it's too late. And maybe it's already a mature market. And maybe the people that actually started, like when I actually did, they got 3, 4, 5 years more in advanced experience than you, because they actually did it. They learned from the market, their mistakes. They learned whatever they did, with whatever they practice. So we had that. We did it for 1 year. We didn't have any funding. So we started with 60 euros, actually. We didn't even have money to incorporate a real company. It was a civil company, a comunidad de bienes, So it was that type of structure, and we just applied for public funding. So, next advice, don't go for personal funding when you start your company. I've seen that happening many times as well, okay? Many people think, oh, this is my business idea. I really want to make it happen. I'm just going to ask for a loan and sign with my own personal assets. Don't do that, okay? Try to avoid that. Really, no matter how much you believe on your idea, that's the normal tendency is to fall into what psychologists call optimismo. It's like illusory optimism, okay? Illusory optimism, which is like the fake feeling that everything is going to be fine and things are going to work out as you want to. So that's another thing. That's another part of the journey that I learned, is that 1 year after, when we got actually 25 to 30K in funding, we invested everything in computers and office and so on. And we actually, we got an accident because our whole office got into a fire, and it was burnt, completely burnt. Like there was almost nothing. I think we managed to get, from our 6 computers, we took the pieces out, put it in we took it all out and we made 1 computer, and that was it, right? And we lost everything we had. And at that time, we realized we had to decide, that same night, one of the members of the team could not even be able to speak for 2 days because of the shock. The other one, the other one passed out. So it was like a very tense moment. But then we actually had a meeting, and we decided that we wanted to continue. That it was our dream, that it was irrational decision, because we started not with 0, but with minus 25,000. But actually, we realized that it was our passion. It was what we really wanted to do. It was our dream. And we had worked so much to put it in place that we wanted to get going. Really, this is not something I tell you just to make it look like better, the story or whatever. But same day, the next year, at the same time, around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, we were awarded as the best young company in Madrid because of the rapid growth we had in that year as the legal tech company. And that wouldn't have been possible if we didn't have the extra motivation to actually realize, to be at the limit, and to actually realize that this is what we really, really, really wanted to do. So next advice, if I may say, or next experience, next lesson learned, at least for me, passion and motivation was underestimated. It's incredible the value and the power of of a team when it's aligned to actually make something happen, and we actually did. So we focus on the fact that if we really wanted to do it, and we actually did. Okay. So after that, we created 2 more companies. We had another crisis after Lehman Brothers, and I was just a happy entrepreneur with 30 people working in the 3 companies we actually created after a few more years, and we were making a lot of money. And all of a sudden, the Lehman Brothers crisis came. So again, we started from 1 year to another, from 30 employees to myself and my wife that were actually just picking up the phone, pretending we were the administration department, delaying with whatever excuse to say we will pay you later, and doing all the work that we were supposed to do as soon as possible in order to be able to pay our employees, but not to pay them, to fire them. Because before you fire someone, you need to actually pay some money. So, but if you don't even have that money, that's a catch-22. That's a vicious circle. So we were in that situation. So anyway, that was like another fire, metaphorically speaking. That's why after that, I realized that, being an entrepreneur, regardless of the project itself, was something that it was within my genes, within my essence, and that's what I wanted to do. My mistake was actually, and I could tell you many mistakes from that experience. First of all, I mixed my personal money with the company's money. I was so biased. I was so, I was so aligned with my team and emotionally attached to my team that I asked for money from a personal loan of, I think it was like $25,000, just to pay half of the staff's salary for 1 month. And, that was, a 25K debt for 5 years for a person, and that's half a month for a company. And in the long run, they don't even thank you. They thank you when you do the effort, but if you don't manage to actually keep it going, they will, we all have, selective memory, so they will think that you just didn't pay them. And I didn't know, we are together in this, we want to, it's either all of us or none of us. And it's good to become passionate, as I told you from the first time of the story, but it's not as good to let emotions drive mainly your decisions, especially in times of crisis. And especially, just don't forget that you are the entrepreneur. You get the upside, of course, but you also get the downside. And the downside is that you can be legally responsible forever, and that you might not be able to even recover from those debts. So to make story short, I sold one of the companies that was going well to get some extra cash. I closed another one, and we actually sold another one, the digital marketing company. And between those times, I was proposed to be the president of the young entrepreneurs in Madrid and Spain, and vice president of Europe. And I thought it was a good opportunity because I was committed to entrepreneurship, to promote it. I was not. I had some cash to go over, for like a year to decide what I was going to do next, my next entrepreneurship. entrepreneurial project, and I wanted to give back what that association had given me because I got that 25K at the beginning and the price of the the award from them. So I felt in debt. So I did that. It was more than a year. Ended up being almost 2 years and a half, and I had the opportunity to speak to thousands of entrepreneurs and institutions and different from different countries and different places, backgrounds and so on. So then I realized that I was becoming a politician more than an entrepreneur, and I was looking at myself, and I was wearing a suit. I was like, it was just not the image of who I wanted to become, what I expected to be. And so I decided to go back to become an entrepreneur. I did what I felt more passionate about, that basically was promoting entrepreneurship, to create different ideas, because I had a very 360 skill set, but at the same time I was bored of becoming a consultant, because I wanted to take the risk with the entrepreneur. Consultants, sometimes they don't take the risk. They just, they do the job, but if it doesn't work, they have no downside. And if it does work, even the upside is just getting paid. But in the end, they don't really put their skin in the game, right? So we created Sonar Ventures. Sonar Ventures is what it's called a venture builder. Basically, it's like a startup studio. Imagine a movie studio that produces movies, and they look for directors to produce their movies, right? Well, we actually work the same way. We think of different ideas or problems to be solved, or we listen to other people's ideas or problems to be solved. Same way as a producer gets scripts from script writers, directors, or their own ideas, right? And they decide to actually produce 1-2 per year, or whatever the producing company. So, and what the producing company does, as we do with entrepreneurs, is we give all the resources. We give the financing, the technology, the overheads, the funding. Basically everything an entrepreneur needs, but it's the entrepreneur that actually leads the project, puts the passion, leads the team, sets the vision, and persists with the business, right? So that's another lesson from that stage also, that ideas are worthless. The important thing that I learned about it is that I found, and I proved that through the years, that there are many people that are entrepreneurs, but they don't have a specific business idea. Same as there are many movie directors that they love what they do. They feel passionate about the film industry, becoming directors to create an art, their own art. And they don't care if the producing company, if the producer gives them a specific idea and they make it their own. And so don't overestimate the value of ideas. That's another message I wanted to give you through this, this personal story. That once again, it's not an introduction. It's a way to give you different messages about entrepreneurship through my own experience. Okay. So basically, we develop Sonar Ventures. We produce around two startups per year. We invest between 200, 300K per company. We even give a salary to the entrepreneur, but we don't give a salary like a market salary. We give it like between 20K to 30K per year, where instead of 50 to 60K, that they could get in the market. But those 20 to 30K that they are not getting as salary is their equity. It's like if they were investing with me. So they become partners, they don't become managers. Actually, we call them manapreneurs, managers, entrepreneurs. So it's a hybrid, okay? So we became innovative because we found a new sector that was mixing the best of the manager and the best of the entrepreneur, okay? So we produce more than, 10 companies already, and some of them have gone badly and others have gone great. And we sold two of them. And right now I'm focused more on one of them that is called Food in the Box. That I don't want to get too much into details. Basically, it's a meal kit business. We send a box with ingredients in the right sizes and step-by-step instructions every week, so that you can actually cook your own food and in a healthy way, right? So that's basically the story of it, and that leads me to the next point, that is, as I was telling you, the external aspects of entrepreneurship. Because through that time, in my experience as a president of the Young Entrepreneurs, my dream was to develop an entrepreneurial ecosystem in Madrid. So we analyzed what are the different factors to develop an ecosystem. This is not a theory. This is something I actually tried to develop with more than 2 million euros budget and the help of the institutions. But why is this important in a class like this about psychology of entrepreneurship? Well, if you think about it, the modern psychology has clear that your environment changes you, right? They call it environment design now. You can actually change people, change habits by changing their own environment. Sounds obvious, but okay. Now it's like the new trend. It's inspired by epigenetics. If you take it to a biological level, the environment can actually change the DNA of a cell. So take that to a different holarchic levels, and you will get an entrepreneurial ecosystem from an epigenetic approach to entrepreneurship. Okay, and I truly believe that. I've seen projects that they did not do well because of the ecosystem they were planted into. So it's very common for entrepreneurs to think, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur, and I just happen to be in Spain, so I'll just become an entrepreneur in Spain. And that's it. And I'm not talking about the market and the potential market, which of course is something to take into account, but that's even before we know what we're going to do. Because you never know what your market is going to be until much farther than you think. Okay? It's not like the business plan says, right? But it's about the ecosystem to become an entrepreneur, not to launch a specific business, but actually to be an entrepreneur. And you need to consider all these aspects that the Babson College actually came with in a very brilliant manner, with the main 6 factors that affect entrepreneurship. I'm not going through all of them, but just for you to take a snapshot of that, and to please take into account at least just write down the main 6, as you can see, the main circles, because they're critical. You need to analyze the policy of a country, whether it's an entrepreneur-friendly country, how long it takes to create a company. Do you need a lot of licenses? Do you need to actually bribe the government to get those licenses? It sounds weird, but I've seen that in certain countries. What are the laws that actually condition the rest of the elements, like the financial sector? If you don't have tax benefits for investors, you will probably not have a good finance ecosystem. You need to take into account the culture. The culture is actually one of the main factors of an entrepreneurial ecosystem. You need to analyze if in the country that you are, becoming an entrepreneur is something great, good, okay, or actually bad. And I've seen cases like completely different, and people don't actually think of all these issues before. But really, it will help you, because it will help you to make the decision to remain where you are or actually to change and go to another country. Just don't fall into the comfortable choice of becoming an entrepreneur where you are living or where you feel like you should be. Okay? That's a very common mistake. Let me give you one example. 2 weeks ago, I met in Dominican Republic one guy that he was the co-founder and CTO. He was from Colombia. He was co-founder and CTO of a company that I really admire. Is Kiwi. Kiwi is like autonomous vehicles for delivery. Okay, these guys were very intelligent, very perseverant, but they knew that if they started that type of business in Colombia, that was not gonna work. They needed an ecosystem to get the right talent, the right funding. How are you gonna get 10, 50 million, 30 million dollars in an ecosystem like Colombia? I tell you, it's almost impossible. Almost impossible. That's almost like the total money for early startups that the whole country has. Really. How are you going to get potential clients? It's really difficult. So they made the choice to actually travel to San Francisco. They slept for 6 to 9 months in a small mattress, the two of them, okay, and almost eating shit, if I excuse for the expression, and in a very, very, very scarce environment. But they had clear that their ecosystem was San Francisco. It was not just a potential market, it was the whole ecosystem. And they made the sacrifice. They left their couples there, they left everything there, their friends, their everything, and because they had clear that it was not about the dream only, that you need to put the means to it, and the means they start with the ecosystem. Okay, so take into account policy, finance, culture, how the culture of failure is in a company, if you in an ecosystem, and so on. Markets, human capital, and support. So that's for the external elements. Okay, any questions about the external elements, about the ecosystem? No? So far so good? Yeah? Any experience you want to share about that? Who in this room is an entrepreneur already? No? Who is a wanapreneur? Who is thinking about being an entrepreneur? So far you're potential wanapreneurs, okay? I'm sorry, I'm just kidding, but my objective, once again, is for you to make you stop being an entrepreneur, wanapreneur. So that's for the external point of view. From the internal point of view, there are many other dimensions that we should take into account. Okay. The first dimension is to know what are. You probably are saying like, oh, what just happened? There's a slide that is backwards. What's going on? He made a mistake. Actually, I did it on purpose. Okay. Because that was the most visual way that I could come with to explain what I think of an entrepreneur. What is the definition, actually the best definition I ever listened of what is an entrepreneur? What is that? What do you see there? Try to guess. Some people are doing like that. People at their homes are flipping the monitor. First is a pyramid, right? It's an inverse pyramid. Okay, and if you cannot read any of the words, okay, I'm going to give you the solution. It's Maslow's pyramid. Maslow's pyramid of needs. The best definition I've read about entrepreneurship is an entrepreneur is a person that has an inverse Maslow pyramid of needs. Why? Okay, of course it's an exaggeration, but it's a visual way to put it, okay? Maslow's pyramid of needs says you first need to have food, shelter, safety, then you can have love, sex, family, money, and so on. And finally, on the top of it, it's self-actualization, self-realization, okay? So an entrepreneur is a person that first in their pyramid is self-actualization, and then he or she makes sure that he can get or she can get food, money, family, and so on. But the self-actualization is at the bottom of their own pyramid of needs, because that's in order to fill their needs, they first to look for that. It's like when you see these artists that you don't understand why they have this such uncertain and humble and poor life, because all they can think of is like, I don't care, I just want to make my art, I need to express it, right? That to me is another example of as an inverse pyramid of needs. They first need to be self-realized. They need to give, to project their own art, to express it, to let it out. And they're willing to do anything they have to do it. So once they're sure they can do it, then they see if they can do the rest of the things. Of course, once again, this is an exaggeration, okay? But just, they need to eat, they need to, and so on. But for some people, actually, some entrepreneurs, it's not even an exaggeration, okay? But just remember these two guys that were in San Francisco in a mattress for 6-7 months, eating almost nothing. Like, I think it was like one ramen soup per day, that it was like $1. I mean, it was just incredible, because they had no money whatsoever if they wanted to make it last for 7 months, okay? And they were willing to risk their own couples. So to me, that's living a few, levels of the Maslow's pyramid away. So anyway, that's the first thing that I think what it takes to become an entrepreneur. This is an extreme case. There are other people that don't have it other people that don't feel it as such extreme. But to get the message is they need to have a priority in their life for self-actualization. Self-actualization, self-realization, it needs to be at the bottom of their pyramid of need. Maybe not the first one, but maybe the second or the third, okay? But it needs to be at the core of their needs. It's not something they will do maybe one day, because that's what I see with these other entrepreneurs, that they want to, do all this study, work, whatever, and they might want to ever become entrepreneurs. That's because they idealize the idea of becoming entrepreneurs, but it's not really pushing inside, They don't have that fire inside demanding, that every day that they're not becoming an entrepreneur is something missing in their lives. There's something incomplete. Regardless of the idea, once again, I've proven personally with Sonar Ventures, but I've seen it in many other cases, that, entrepreneurship is not about the idea. Many uncreative people get disencouraged to become entrepreneurs because they think they don't have a great idea. That doesn't make sense. Really, it doesn't make sense. Or you can co-found a company with other people's idea and become a co-founder. Actually, this guy that I met from Colombia, he had failed in a previous company that he started, and he joined this project to get some extra money as a developer, and he became co-founder and CTO because he loved it so much, and in the end he couldn't last only for a few months working for someone else. Okay, so that's something to take into account when you talk about motivation to become entrepreneurs. Now, once you have that self-actualization priority, you need to consider what is called the golden circle. Does anybody know here what the golden circle is? No? Anybody knows? Yeah? You want to share? No. Okay. Okay, you allow me to express it. Thank you so much. Okay, so the golden circle is, well, as most powerful concept is a simple and obvious concept, as most of great ideas, there's just synthesized in a very nice way and well communicated. Golden circle is that normally, in terms of communication in business and how we do things, we normally start from the what we want to do. Oh, what are you doing? Oh, my company is doing this and that and that. Oh, what are you doing? Oh, I do this as my job. I am whatever. Okay, you say what you are. When you even think about entrepreneurship, becoming an entrepreneur, you say, oh, I just want to create this idea. That's the what. And when you have that line of thought, that internal logic, you tend to make great mistakes, and you're starting the building with the wrong grounds or the wrong roots. Okay, people or companies that start with the why, with the purpose, with the reason why they want to become entrepreneurs, the reason why they want to do that change, and then they try to see how they can materialize that purpose and what is the result. So it's not the same saying, oh, we just build computers, or as we want to challenge the status quo. We see the technology as the bicycle of humankind, that gives mankind a power to multiply its potential abilities, and we think that can be this through a beautiful design, and we think that it can be integrated seamlessly into people's lives, and that's when you really want to build great computers. And we just happen to make computers. It's a different way to attract talent, to attract investors, to attract customers, but also to be sure of what you want to do, to motivate yourself, right? So I would like you to think, what could be your why as entrepreneurs or potential entrepreneurs? Why do you want to become entrepreneurs? Anyone wants to share? Could be in Spanish at the same time. I know that could be here to listen in English, but don't feel 100% confident to share in English. It's okay. We'll translate. But what is the reason? And let me put it this way. Have you ever watched this TV show called Silicon Valley? Okay. Write it down. Download it tonight. Please. Silicon Valley. It's a parody of the startup world. It's really, really well done. I mean, I felt really identified with it. You learn so many things about the beginning of a company and the growth of a company, of an IT company, and you learn about entrepreneurship. It's a very fun show to watch, and it will give you some hints. Well, that show starts with a parody of a TED Talk, a motivational TED Talk of a guy that wants to sell a company saying, I want to make the world a better place. It's nice to want to make the world a better place, but everyone is saying that. It's an empty sentence nowadays. Okay? That means everything and nothing at the same time. And we are having this social pressure that if we are entrepreneurs, the only reason is because we want to change society. Okay? And it could be one of the reasons. Of course, it is in my case. But it's not the only reason. So you need to be honest to yourselves and realize what are the real motives why you want to become entrepreneurs. And it's normally a blend, it's a mix of reasons, it's a mix of motivations, okay? Some people, they really want to prove their father or their parents that they can actually do something for themselves. Some others, they hate their bosses, they're tired of working for other people, they cannot take more bullshit, and they just want to do it themselves because they think I want to create my own value. Some other people, they need to feel this self-realization that they started something from scratch and they made it happen, regardless of the idea. They just wanted to be part of a project. Some others, they just had an idea, and that idea was a general idea or even a specific idea, that it was like a disease, a virus that you cannot get out because, it was difficult they needed to do it. Others because they felt deeply touched, emotionally speaking, for something that happened to them or someone they know, and they really want to help to solve that problem. Okay? Others, they just want to be really rich, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I've seen many successful entrepreneurs, they really want to become rich. I want to become rich. I had a lot of money for some time. I lost it all. I had a lot of money after. It's ups and downs. But if that was my only motivation, let me tell you, I can tell you that most of the successful entrepreneurs would have failed dramatically. Dramatically. Imagine that you are in, your own company. Remember this long story that I told you about my experience? Imagine yourself waking up in the morning. You haven't slept much because you're thinking, oh my goodness, how am I going to pay my people? Oh my goodness, what am I going to do? Oh, the bank sent me this receipt again. Oh, I need to pay this other thing. Okay? You need to wake up. You feel anxious because you haven't slept much, and you know that you don't want to face that day because each day is going to be a hell. And you know that it's not getting better in the short term. You need to, take the elevator to your office, and you're going to look at the eyes to the people that, a few weeks ago were your teammates. That you could have nice beers, and, you're a cool boss. And you're one of them because you hated when your boss treated you the other way. So you want to, people to like you, but now you have to explain them why you haven't paid them in 1 or 2 months. And then you actually need to get some clients, but it's like when you go and try to get a couple. If the other person senses that you need it, they run away. It's a common reaction. So the clients, if they feel your need, they will not be sold most of the time. Your team will not be motivated. So you need to have extra motivation and project that everything is great. And at the same time, you will get home late, and your couple will tell you you don't spend time with me because you're all the time working. And what's going to happen with us, if we don't have certainty in the near future? Of course, that your parents will tell you probably a very great sentence that I think it should be framed. It's called, "I told you so." Okay? That's a great sentence, very encouraging, very motivational. I told you so. As if they deserve the gift as a prize for, to have the crystal ball of the future. And your friends will tell you, they will not tell you anything. They will just be compassionate and try to be cool about it. They will invite you. They will tell you, hey, come on, just come over. But you will see that they have much more stable lives. And you will imagine that they have a better life than you do at that time. And not to mention about your physical situation. So of course I'm describing a horrific image that some of you might say, okay, was this about to motivate us to become entrepreneurs? Well, I would be happy if you actually have a realistic picture of what becoming an entrepreneur is. And at some point, there's no entrepreneur in my whole life that I haven't met that hasn't been through that stage at some point. That's what they call the valley of death. This is not something I came with. It's Paul Graham, it's who else? Steve Blank, two great entrepreneurs teaching at Stanford University, and they call the Valley of Death. It's like a 1 to 2, 3 years gap, where once again, not to that intensity. I'm just reflecting the peak of that moment, but where you actually don't have any rational argument to be an entrepreneur. And there's no way you can think of money as your motivation. Because, first, how are you going to motivate your team if your motivation is money? It's difficult. How are you going to motivate yourself? How are you going to explain that to your environment? It's very difficult. So that's why one of the key ideas of this session is to really, this is not a motivational, emotional speech. This is reality. If, the reason why I got over many of my entrepreneurial experiences was because I had a why. I had a real purpose of why I wanted to become entrepreneur, and that somehow pulls the rest. It's like the core of entrepreneurship. It pulls the rest. It pulls your perseverance, pulls even your resilience. It pulls your motivational approach to gather and keep people around you. So, I don't know, just take that into account, okay? So that's the golden circle. Of course, there are other skill set and competencies that you should take into account that I'm not going to mention. You could see there are a bunch of them, and they're more from more soft skills to more technical. But of course, everything is not about passion. You need to have the passion, the motivation, but you need to have the skills. Once again, otherwise you will not be able to actually get on the board and get the wave, right? It takes skills. So you have all these competencies that I advise you to get, through your life. But if you don't have some of them, the great news about it is that you can have them. All this skill set, apart from the base of the pyramid, you can get it. Of course I finished law. I got a master's in law. But most of my legal knowledge comes from my experience. And my father was a lawyer, and he told me one great sentence, that each lawyer is an expert. It's only an expert on the case he is with. So in the end, you learn case by case, situation, challenge after challenge. But just don't forget this skill set that EAE, for example, is also a good partner for that. Now, another aspect that is really important is, okay, yeah, I got the external aspects, I got the clear my purpose, my why. But the problem is, I'm so over optimistic and I don't know myself that in the end, what I will do as an entrepreneur is I will look for someone that is exactly the same as I am. That is one of the main mistakes that I've seen in entrepreneurship. Okay? Not a good team. If there's one thing I learned after creating companies and creating a company that creates companies, is that it's not about the methodology. It's about the people. And it sounds cliche, but it's really true. It took me many years to internalize it. And I knew it by theory, but to internalize that it's all about building teams. And those teams, they gravitate, they have their main support on, or the whole balance of the team depends on how well you know yourself. So that is another major message that I would love you to get from me today, that this know thyself, this know yourself, that it comes from the Greek. This is critical when it comes to entrepreneurship. You cannot imagine how critical it is. Knowing yourself and knowing what are your weaknesses and strengths will determine how the rest of the team will be. And if you know yourself and you're humble enough to actually realize what are your weaknesses and strengths, then your next challenge is not to do what most people do. That is, find people with the same weaknesses and strengths. Because when you start, you feel lonely. You feel like, oh my God, am I gonna really do this? Am I gonna start myself an entrepreneur? Oh, it gives you, it's not easy. So if someone comes to you and wants to be part of of the trip, you like it sometimes because you find similarities, because you have, at that time, you are alike and you think that's a great team. And I've seen that hundreds of times, literally. People that look for another person that is exactly the same. Instead of that, it's good to know who you are, what is your profile, and look for other people complementing you. And here you have a model. There are many models, but this is one that is called the Belbing roles. It's used in many companies, but that helped me a lot, and I used it. through my career, that people, professionally speaking, can be categorized into all these 9 profiles, depending on whether you are more of a thinker, more have like an abstract, like a person with ideas and creative and so on, more in the clouds, vision, strategy. It's great. They need it. Any company needs it. To the most specific, detail-oriented profiles. So if you're one of the top of the, what it's called the brain the type, just try to find people at the beginning, not specialists. Just try to find either, my opinion, I would just try to get an implementer. Is more of a general person that has like a 360 competencies, will help you to make things happen, but is not super good at something, because there are too many things at the beginning you need to do. So don't get a specialist. Specialists at the beginning, you can outsource them. Get someone that, if you are the brain type of person, just get an implementer or a coordinator. But coordinator comes after, when there are some people to coordinate. Okay? But I would just focus on the implementer. If you're an implementer, find someone that has more of an abstract approach. Okay? So Belvin roles, really take a look at it because it helps. Now, specifically applied to startups and new companies, I would suggest that you take into account this framework, because I always use it. Whenever I see a team, I always look for, who's the hacker, who's the hipster, and who's the hustler. Every winning team has these 3 profiles, and that's actually a more simplistic approach to what I was saying before, but it's really important. Okay, what is a hacker? Does anybody want to say what a hacker could be? Come on, you're potential entrepreneurs. You need to prove that you have no fear to speak in public, that you can conquer your fears, that you don't feel ashamed, even if whatever you say. What do you think the hacker is as opposed to the hustler? You get the pictures there. So, anyone? The brain. Okay, that could be one way, but the hacker, it's not just one guy, with a computer trying to get into, sneak into the Pentagon. No, the hacker is more of an operations person. Is a person that it's detail or execution oriented. Makes things happen. Is a person that is realistic, sometimes pessimistic. Okay, that gives rigorous approach to work. That likes to see things in detail, in tasks, in in different milestones and KPIs, and just doesn't like bullshit. Things like that. As opposed to the hustler, that is in the other side. The hustler, as you can see, Steve Jobs here is like the guy with a vision. I would say more than the brain person is the hustler. Okay, is the person that is over optimistic. They're always in the clouds. They tend to say, "Oh, you're way too optimistic. Oh, you're not. You're very dispersed. You don't concrete. You are a smoke seller, or whatever." Because it's a great salesman, is more enthusiastic, or salesperson is more enthusiastic, is more convincing, more persuasive, right? Is the one that takes, gets the investors, gets the team to actually, in a job interview, the person decides to work at your company because she fell in love with the way you projected the company and the dream, right? So the balance between the hacker and the hustler is what makes a really good team. Now the hipster is a nice to have. I think is essential in certain type of companies, but it's really, really, really important. Okay, The hipster is not, imagine like an artist, okay? An artist is not a hacker, it's not execution oriented, organized, realistic. It's not that way, but it's not also a good salesperson, you know? It's not like over social. It's just in his or her own world, has a different sensitivity, different emotional skills. Is that normally is the person that actually will get the team more together because it's less conflictive and so it's more cohesive and has the sensitivity to get the customer's needs and makes it and turn them into a product. Imagine you got Steve Wozniak. He was CTO of Apple. He was great developer, great with hardware. He built a great machine, but incredibly ugly, you know, unsexy. It was not until this guy became the chief design officer at the latest stage of Apple that he actually designed the iMac that Apple recovered from the ashes, right? He still is the chief designer officer, okay? And of course, needless to say about Steve Jobs, right? He would sell, ice to an Eskimo, as we say in Spain, I don't know. So, I would ask you, you want to share, now the four of you that are here, especially, what are you, a hacker, hustler, or a hipster? And if anyone wants to share that through the hashtag, I would be more than happy as well. What are you, Rocío?
I think that I'm feeling better with maybe hustler.
A hustler, okay. I would say you are 60-40.
60-40.
70-30. 70 hustler, 30 hacker.
Yes?
Yes,
So you can see that?
I think so.
Thank you.
Well, yeah. So anyone else wants to share?
I'm really hacker.
You're a hacker. Excellent.
Just thinking in the KPIs and what is the most realistic way to do the things.
Okay. Now, I've seen many hackers. They feel more comfortable, socially speaking, and with other hackers because they share their own frequency, right? And I've seen so many teams that they're two hackers working together, and they get it all ready, but they don't. They know it's more difficult to sell. It's more difficult to get investment, and I think it would be great if you would start looking at people that are more hustlers, okay? Because that would be a great complement. At the time I was the president of the Young Entrepreneurs. I had the opportunity to be part of the jury of dozens of awards for entrepreneurs and things like that. So I've seen a lot of teams presenting and asking for funding or an award or whatever. And it was very common to see teams of 2 to 3 hackers coming from a university, incredibly smart, hard workers, hyper organized, super reliable. They had like an incredible technology that they could be developed and in a much competitive way than in the United States because of the salaries and the means here and so on. Every time I would ask them, so how are you planning on selling? How are you going to sell this? What is your go-to-market strategy? How are you really going to convince investors that this is a great opportunity? They would say, oh no, it's on the business plan. As you can see in the business plan, and I'm not saying it's you, I'm just, it's in the business plan. Here in the Excel, you can see there is a business developer with a senior that we're going to hire once we have the money. They see sales as a plug-in, like I just buy it, They don't integrate that aspect of the development of a company from the beginning of the company. And that's why there are so many IT companies that don't reach anywhere because they're just too technical but not oriented to market. So I would say try to go to a hustler approach and then the hipster comes after. Okay, the hipster, you can actually outsource it at the beginning. You know, it's easier, it's less critical from my point of view, unless it's dependent on the business, of course. But for the most part, I would say so. So, what about you?
I think I am like the half hacker and half hipster.
Okay.
And if I feel like passionate enough for, I don't know, for an idea or a concept, I will be like 20% hustler,
Oh, okay.
I think.
That's good. So also you could find a hustler that would complement you. That of course, you know, even though you could each, and I've seen as companies grow and co-founders are hackers, inevitably they end up becoming hustlers, a bit hustlers. Just take a look at Larry Page and Sergey. You've seen the pictures from the beginning when they started. They were two geeks. They were not hackers like as an archetype. They're actually, you know, geeks. You know, that's another extreme. You know, now you see them and they're really good salespeople, and they really have social skills, and they really have this optimistic approach, and they all have, you know, that is being learned through time. But clearly, there's one hustler and one hacker. You know, there was Bill Gates with Steve Ballmer. Steve Ballmer was the hustler ever in history of the business world. Okay, and Bill Gates, of course, he can communicate better, but we've all seen him as, you know, a hacker. So once again, it's good to have a bit of a hustler in that matter.
Yeah, I would say that I am like Eduardo. I'm gonna have like hacker and hipster.
Okay.
Because I think I am very detailed, but also I think I know how to connect people, and I am always aware of what is going on around me. So
You are oriented to, you have sensitivity to art and aesthetics, how beautiful a product needs to be,
yeah,
the user experience. You don't care, right? Because you're a hacker.
yeah, more or less. Yeah.
Maybe you will be a good team. No?
Maybe the next big thing can come out of this
You have to meet
place,
each other.
huh?
Do you meet each other?
No?
No? Okay.
Well, you
Yeah,
should have a coffee after. So anyway, as you can see, until you know, it's oversimplistic. You know, we're talking about archetypes, models. You know, but what is a model? It's a simplification of reality. Okay, but it works. Otherwise, it's not a model. You know, it's not a valid model. It works to understand the interactions between people, and it works to help us understand who we are, because that, once again, also helps us to understand other people. So if you apply what I was telling you here and the previous slide about, you know, the different roles, you will be more tolerant and more empathic when you deal with teams and people and investors. You will say, oh, okay, he's a hacker, so I cannot expect certain things, and I cannot judge him for that, you know, or he's a hustler. So let's make him the best hustler ever. Let's take advantage of that. I will be the one, you know, giving, you know, making things happen. You know, just keep dreaming, you know, but also you make things happen. Just bring money, you know, bring people, bring attention, bring media, you know, bring vision, you know. I will help you to, you know, orient that vision. But if we know who we are, it's like couples, you know. Once you know who you are and you accept the other person, and normally when they are a good team is when the couple lasts longer, you know. They complement each other, you know. We're talking about that last week, right? About couples and how they should complement each other. Mm-hmm. What about you? Hacker or hustler or hipster?
Hipster.
You're a hipster. Yeah. Your aesthetics, you're oriented to the you know, the product, the art, the beauty of it. Excellent. So as a hipster, you need to get a team that puts you back into reality of the business world, you know. Normally, I don't know you, I'm just saying that it's a tendency, okay? That if you're a hipster, if you need to deal with reality, you can do it, of course, if you manage, if you you want to, but it's better to be, forget about these things of I'll get out of your comfort zone. No, look for your comfort zone. Look for it, because that's where things happen. It's counterintuitive. I know that people say, no, you need to go to the magic zone. No. If you need to get out of your comfort zone, then it's not your comfort zone. That's my point of view. Because comfort zone doesn't mean to be comfortable, like to be relaxed and easygoing and so on. To me, a comfort zone is when you actually feel that you're in your element, when you feel that you are vibrating at your own frequency where you should be, right? So if you should be a hipster, it's good to stretch yourself a bit, as I was saying about hackers becoming hustlers, a little bit, but not to impersonate someone that you're not. It's better to be honest, to accept your strengths, and that you can bring the beauty, you can be the product obsessed person that makes sure that everything is perfect so that the client finds it wonderful. It's actually a way to be a hustler, because modern marketing, not previous marketing or growth hacking, as now it used to be called, the most and best e-marketers, what they say now is that best marketing is to have a great product. It sounds obvious, but before they were giving more attention to the methodology to grow the business, and they were thinking about the techniques to grow in users and clients. But now the state of the art of the marketing is to create incredible products, because the type of growth that those products they generate in the long term is more sustainable, because it's people that actually go back and buy to you again, and people refer and bring you other clients. So in a way, if the product person is also a salesperson. You see my point? Just find people that might, you got it better as a hipster, because either way is a good start. Finding a hustler or a hustler or a hacker, it's easier. If you're a hustler, you only can find hackers, so your chances of finding it are less. Okay?
We have 4 minutes.
Yeah. Sorry. So anyway, these are the factors. Other factors, I will just go quickly over them. We're saying external, internal, motivational, to know ourselves, to find the right team, to complement each other. But in the end, there are other factors as chance, chaos, serendipity, luck, that normally are not taken into account when you think of a business. But most great businesses, something happened, some serendipity that as the name itself, you cannot know how it's going to be, but it will define the rest of your life and your business. I had, the fire in my office was a serendipity, or it could have been the worst thing, bad luck, but it turned out to be good luck, okay? But in the end, it's things that are way beyond your control that define what will happen in your business. At least you know that you need to control as much as you can do yourself. That's like a minimum. But even so, if that was only the case, people with the right why, with the right skill set and access to the right team, the success rate would be much higher. But it's also serendipity. I don't want to call it luck, but in a way it is luck also. Sometimes, Evernote, the application, he was about to close the company. He sent a mail at 3 a.m. to his client saying, I'm sorry, we got no funding. We loved it, but we need to close. And there's one customer I think it was in Norway, that say, wait a moment, I love this product. What's going to happen? What's happening here? It's like, oh no, we just lost funding. Okay, I'll send you a check next morning for 500,000 euros. What are the odds of that happening? I mean, are you going to take that into account in a business plan? Does it affect your why, your purpose, your team, your nothing? There are certain things that can actually, determine, and they're external. So I'm just stating this so that you are humble about what you can, do and what you cannot, but also it will help you to lower your fear of failure. Because really, in my experience, you can control up to a certain extent, and society is telling us that entrepreneurship is a meritocracy, and it's not a meritocracy. It's not at all. Professionalism could be a meritocracy if you discount the fact that it's also about relationships and contacts, right? But in entrepreneurship, the uncertainty is exponentially higher. And just don't forget that. To sum it up, Google, the first page when they started, actually they didn't start as such. They started as a university project where they wanted to make an online service where you can order pizza. This is real. And they wanted to, you could order pizza and then the system would send a fax through the internet. You could send faxes through the internet lines and send the order to the closest pizza place. They ran the experiment. They tested themselves. They waited for the pizza. The pizza didn't come for like an hour. So finally, when they were desperate, they called the pizza place and like, we ordered a pizza. What happened? So the paper had fallen off the floor, and the guy at the pizza place was too busy, dealing with the orders at the place. So they assumed that the market was not ready to do a pizza delivery service through the internet. That was just the beginning of the internet, right? What would have happened if that guy had found the paper and actually brought the pizza to Larry Page and Sergey? We don't know. But maybe they would feel so encouraged, so reassured in their own hypothesis, that they would have built it for 6 months and launched it and asked for funding, and probably would fail. And maybe Google could have come up, maybe not. I'm most likely not, because the amount of serendipities that had to also be there. Google was there because Yahoo was at a certain time, in a very bad position. They had done it 6 months later, it wouldn't have worked. 6 months earlier, wouldn't have worked either. So I will just sum up, as I was saying at the beginning, the mistakes to avoid, just to finish. They're simple messages. It will take me only 2 more minutes. First, this is a one-upreneur. Just try to avoid becoming a one-upreneur. It's a person that is like that, is like, hey, I'm about to launch my project, but you never do. And I've met so many people. I've seen people in different events for years. So how is your project? They say, I'm almost there, the developer did something wrong, whatever, but we're going to launch soon, and forget about it. Launch today. As you finish this, just run small experiments. There are methodologies that you can use to go against it. Second mistake, avoid becoming a Gollum entrepreneur. Gollum from the Lord of the Rings. My precious, my idea. I've seen so many of entrepreneurs like that. They have a great idea. They think they cannot share with anyone because they will take it away from them, because they had this brilliant mastermind idea. That's not going to happen. I mean, I've never met an investor that has invested in someone that asked for a non-disclosure agreement or a confidentiality agreement to disclosing the idea. That actually goes to the trash bin directly, really. Forget about the idea. The idea is worthless. Share it with as many people as you can, because you will validate it. You will confront it with the market, with people, with common sense, with your own self when you articulate it. just express it. Don't be too perfectionist, okay? Really, that's what I call paralysis per analysis. It's a next step of a entrepreneur. They already became entrepreneurs, but they were preparing the product for 2 years, 3 years, and they never launched. And it was already too late, and they didn't take into account. They're so perfectionist that they didn't listen to the market to make quick changes, as we will see in the next sessions in Lean Startup. So most of them, they fail, okay? Don't become, you're not at the office, Don't become too corporate. Entrepreneurship is another order of magnitude. It's a different dimension. Don't think that you want to start doing SWOT analysis and KPIs from the beginning and projections and meetings and like all this corporate stuff applied to startups, because it doesn't work. It's much more rudimentary. Things, they need to work in a different way. So basically, that's it. I hope it was interesting enough. It gave you some messages that anyone can apply as whatever you want. To sum it up, we cover from the external aspects to take into account when we want to become entrepreneurs, to internal aspects, starting from the golden circle and the importance of why, how that, and the Maslow's inverse pyramid of needs, all the different skill set that you can acquire through life, but that is not as important as the one I was telling you. Then to know yourself, identify your weaknesses and strengths, know if you're a hacker, hustler, or a hipster, find other people that are complementary to you, both in those archetypes, and then fight the fear that will come when you really have to make the choice, and avoid becoming a entrepreneur or a person that is way too perfectionist, that it's only paralysis per analysis. So thank you very much, and if you have any questions, you can do them through Twitter at EmprenderCuesta. You can see there in the slide, or through hashtag EmprenderEAE.
Okay, thank you very much, Alvaro, for
Thank
this
you, Rocío.
and for your contributions. In the next few days, we will send you an email with a link, so you can see the session, and we are going to attach the presentation. Okay? Thank you very much, and see you in the next session.
Bye.
Bye.